Hello everyone and welcome to the Interdisciplinary Teaching and Learning in the MYP online workshop. My name is Neus Crespo and I'm here to help you design, implement, and evaluate your first interdisciplinary unit. So I hope you enjoy it. Good luck and off we go. This workshop is especially addressed to MYP teachers who already received their MYP Category 2 training in their respective subject areas and are ready to move forward with their teaching practices. It is also highly recommended for MYP coordinators as well as other administrators. Its purpose is to provide background knowledge of the MYP, including its philosophy and principles, and help participants gain a deeper understanding of the theory of interdisciplinarity and adopt a hands-on approach to developing an interdisciplinary unit of work. For this unit, we will need the following materials. I ask your coordinators to email you the table that you had to complete. You had to fill this table for each subject in each grade that you teach. I put together an example for you. So this is the way your table should look like. During the workshop, you will need a notebook, a pen, and the 3 IB guides, Fostering Interdisciplinary Teaching and Learning in the MYP, MYP from Principles into Practice, and subject group guides. Your coordinators will also provide you with additional resources: laptop projector and internet access, posters with the words intertrans and multidisciplinary, which you will see on the wall, post-it notes, subject groups and their key concepts on cardboard, cutouts with summative assignments, Table 2 printed worksheets, a whistle, interdisciplinary unit example packets, and interdisciplinary unit blank planners. This is the way we're going to structure this workshop. First of all, we will define some key concepts, some important concepts that we will see throughout the workshop. We will talk about the objectives, the points of entry, how to plan an interdisciplinary unit, and finally, how to assess it. But before we start, I have an activity I want to do with you. I want you to think of a unit or a topic in which you collaborate with another teacher, either formally or informally. Briefly describe in a post-it note how do you approach this unit or topic from both subjects. Paste your post-it note under the word that you believe describes your unit best: transdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, or interdisciplinary. As I said before, on the walls, you're going to see 3 posters with each of the words that I just read. Please write down your comments on the post-it and paste your post-its around the poster, just like this. You have approximately 4 to 5 minutes to complete this activity. Coordinators, you can now stop the video. Okay, let's move on. We're going to leave the post-its activity here and we will come back to it later. Let's talk about some concepts. But first of all, as you know, we need to know the reason why we're doing all this. I have included in this slide the program model, the MYP program model. At the very core of the program, at the very center, we have the IB learner profile, which, as you know, it is a set of attributes that describe the type of citizen we want our students to become, so they make a better world in the future. The program model, other than having the student at the center, has the first ring that describes the features that help students develop understanding: global context, approaches to learning, concepts, and this is particularly addressed to teachers, the approaches to teaching. The second ring describes the outcomes: community project carried out in year 3, personal project, carried out in year 5, action and service, which is carried out throughout the 5 years of the program. In the third ring, we see the curriculum, the 8 subjects that created. And the fourth ring is the big framework, the name of the program and the most important attribute that defines it, international mindedness. This is a quote that I really wanted to share with you. Flexibility comes from having multiple choices. Wisdom comes from having multiple perspectives. Gian Nagpal. He is one of the most important economists of the moment, and he is the author of the bestseller Talent Economics. I am sure when we finish the workshop, you will come back to this quote and you will think about it differently. I have a video that I would like to share with you. You can take notes if you wish, but it's pretty short, so it won't take you much time to watch it.
It was 6 men of Hindustan, to learning much inclined, who went to see the elephant, though all of them were blind, that each by observation might satisfy his mind. The first approached the elephant, and happening to fall against his broad and sturdy side, at once began to bawl, "God bless me, but the elephant is very like a wall." The second, feeling of the tusk, cried, "Oh, what have we here? So very round and smooth and sharp? To me 'tis mighty clear. This wonder of an elephant is very like a spear." The third approached the animal, and happening to take the squirming trunk within his hands, thus boldly up he spake, "I see," quoth he, "the elephant is very like a snake." The fourth reached out an eager hand, and felt about the knee. "What most this wondrous beast is like, is mighty plain," quoth he. "'Tis clear enough the elephant is very like a tree." The fifth, who chanced to touch the ear, said, "Even the blindest man can tell what this resembles the most. Deny the fact who can. This marvel of an elephant is very like a fan." The sixth no sooner had begun about the beast to grope, then seizing on the swinging tail that fell within his scope, "I see," quoth he, "the elephant is very like a rope." And so these men of Hindustan disputed loud and long, each in his own opinion exceeding stiff and strong, though each was partly in the right and all were in the wrong.
Okay, great. Now, for the next 3 minutes, I want you to discuss with the person next to you, how does this video connect to education? Coordinators, you can now stop the presentation. Let's now look at the 3 concepts that were presented early in this workshop: multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, and transdisciplinary. Multidisciplinary is the approach that works with multiple disciplines, but always maintaining boundaries. Each discipline is a perspective through which we explore a topic, but they would never interact with each other. For example, in a study of classical civilizations, the history teacher might explore legal institutions, math teacher might explore number systems, and from science class, students might look at different discoveries that were done at that time. The interdisciplinary approach works between more than one discipline, blurring boundaries, with the purpose to achieve new integrated understanding. So it creates some sort of synergy between the 2 subjects that allows students to access knowledge or skills or attitudes that they wouldn't be able to access if they were only limited by one discipline. For example, an MYP unit that explores opportunities for action in response to climate change, for example. And finally, transdisciplinary. This approach implies working across and beyond disciplines, eliminating boundaries. Anything that is learned in this unit transcends any knowledge that could be learned through a single discipline. PYP normally works this way, and an example of transdisciplinary unit would be any approach to any of the themes, the 6 themes that they work with, such as who we are. The official definition provided by the MYP about interdisciplinary learning is that it is a process by which students come to understand knowledge and modes of thinking from different disciplines, and they integrate them to create new understanding, as demonstrated through the idea of explaining a phenomenon, solving a problem, creating a product, or raising a new question in ways that would have been unlikely through a single disciplinary means. We say about interdisciplinary learning that it's integrative, in the sense that it brings together concepts, methods, or forms of communication from different disciplines. We also say that it's purposeful because it addresses real-world problems, complex issues, and it's also grounded in disciplines. Like the different disciplines are the base in order to access more complex and integrated knowledge. There is one more video I want you to watch. The title is The Mathematics of History, and the speaker is Jean-Baptiste Michel, and this is one of his TED Talks, and it's approximately 4 minutes long. Hope you enjoy it.
So it turns out that mathematics is a very powerful language. It has generated considerable insight in physics, in biology, and in economics, but not that much in the humanities and in history. I think there's the belief that it's just impossible, that you cannot quantify the doings of mankind, that you cannot measure history. But I don't think that's right. I want to show you a couple of examples why. So my collaborator Erez and I were considering the following fact, that 2 kings, separated by centuries, will speak a very different language. That's a powerful historical force. So the King of England, Alfred the Great, will use a vocabulary and a grammar that is quite different from the King of Hip-Hop, Jay-Z. Now, it's just the way it is. Language changes over time, and it's a powerful force. So Erez and I wanted to know more about that. So we paid attention to a particular grammatical rule, past tense conjugation. So you just add ed to a verb at the end to signify the past. Today I walk, yesterday I walked. But some verbs are irregular. Yesterday I thought. Well, now, what's interesting about that is irregular verbs between Alfred and Jay-Z have become more regular, like the verb to wed that you see here has become regular. So Erez and I followed the fate of over 100 irregular verbs through 12 centuries of English language. And we saw that there's actually a very simple mathematical pattern that captures this complex historical change. Namely, if a verb is 100 times more frequent than another, it regularizes 10 times slower. That's a piece of history, but it comes in a mathematical wrapping. Now, in some cases, math can even help explain or propose explanations for historical forces. So here, Steve Pinker and I were considering the magnitude of wars during the last 2 centuries. There's actually a well-known regularity to them, where the number of wars that are 100 times deadlier is 10 times smaller. So there are 30 wars that are about as deadly as the 6 Days War. But there's only 4 wars that are 100 times deadlier, like World War I. So what kind of historical mechanism can produce that? What's the origin of this? So Steve and I, through mathematical analysis, propose that there's actually a very simple phenomena at the root of this, which lies in our brains. This is a very well-known feature which we perceive quantities in relative ways, the quantities like the intensity of light or the loudness of a sound. For instance, committing 10,000 soldiers to the next battle sounds like a lot. It's relatively enormous if you've already committed 1,000 soldiers previously. But it doesn't sound so much. It's not relatively enough. It won't make a difference if you've already committed 100,000 soldiers previously. So you see that because of the way we perceive quantities, as the war drags on, the number of soldiers committed to it and the casualties will increase not linearly, like 10,000, 11,000, 12,000, but exponentially. 10,000, later 20,000, later 40,000. And so that explains this pattern that we've seen before. So here, mathematics is able to link a well-known feature of the individual mind with a long-term pattern, a historical pattern that unfolds over centuries and across continents. So these type of examples today, there are just few of them. But I think that in the next decade, they will become commonplace. The reason for that is that the historical record is becoming digitized at very fast pace. So there's about 130 million books that have been written since the dawn of time. Companies like Google have digitized many of them, above 20 million actually. And when the stuff of history is available in digital form, it makes it possible for a mathematical analysis to very quickly and very conveniently reveal trends in our history, in our culture. So I think as in the next decade, the sciences and the humanities will come closer together to be able to answer deep questions about mankind. And I think that mathematics will be a very powerful language to do that. It will be able to reveal new trends in our history, sometimes to explain them, and maybe even in the future to predict what's going to happen. Thank you very much.
This speech definitely brought some food for our thoughts, right? So what I want you to do for the next 5 minutes is to discuss with one of your partners about what we have heard about interdisciplinary teaching and learning, about this approach. And we're going to do that using the compass points. I want you to look at the S, first of all. S stands for stance. And I want you to think about what is your current opinion on interdisciplinary learning, on the approach. The second one, the E, excited. What excites you about it? Next one, W, worrisome. What do you find worrisome about it? Insecure. What makes you think that this is difficult for some reason? And N, need to know. What else do you need to know about interdisciplinary learning? Very briefly, only 5 minutes. Coordinators, you can now stop the video. And just to finish with the first section discussing concepts, I want you to revisit the post-it that we wrote at the beginning of the workshop. Think about the unit that you described in it, and together with another partner, a different one, reflect and then discuss about what you wrote using the following visible thinking strategy. Before I thought, now I think. I need you to consider if the place where you placed your post-it is the right one, or there might be another word, another approach that describes your unit better, what you were doing so far. You have approximately 5 minutes for that. Coordinators, you can stop the presentation now. Good. Let's now move on to section 2, objectives overview. Just like any other IB section, interdisciplinary units are divided in 4 different objectives. Objective A is called disciplinary grounding, and it assesses disciplinary understanding, which needs to be explicitly taught and assessed from each subject area. In order to get a grade out of this, each teacher will use their subject-specific criteria, and eventually the 2 teachers will come up with a final grade. This grade will go to the interdisciplinary unit rubric, which we'll talk about this later. So if we look at the strands, and we look at the strands throughout the continuum, we see that it is the same for the 5 years of the MYP. So demonstrate relevant disciplinary, factual, conceptual, and or procedural knowledge. Regarding objective B, it is about synthesizing. That is, that students demonstrate that they are able to integrate factual, conceptual, and procedural knowledge from the different disciplines in order to explain phenomena or create a product. as we've seen before. In this case, it's also the same descriptor that applies for the 5 years of the MYP. Obviously, the expectations for each year, even if the descriptor is the same, the expectations will be different, obviously. So it would be synthesized disciplinary knowledge to demonstrate interdisciplinary understanding. Objective C is about communicating. So students need to develop the capacity to describe and explain the results of their inquiry. So they have to be able to communicate not only what they found, but also the process and how they put together the different concepts, knowledge from the different disciplines in order to create something new. We have 2 descriptors. The first one, use appropriate strategies to communicate interdisciplinary understanding effectively. This is common throughout the 5 years. And then the second one will be different because the expectations are different and they are explicitly written. In year 1, students are expected to list sources that they have used. In year 3, students are expected to document sources. And in year 5, students are supposed to document sources using recognized conventions, such as, for example, the APA style, for example. And finally, Objective D, the reflection section. Here, students will evaluate the contributions from each discipline, and they will explore various areas of knowledge and ways of knowledge. So here, obviously, the strengths have to be different because they require like a different depth of knowledge. In year 1, students evaluate strengths and limitations on the interdisciplinary learning process. In year 3, students reflect on themselves as disciplinary and interdisciplinary learners. So in this case, the awareness increases. And in year 5, they reflect on the development of their own interdisciplinary understanding, this time taking a more active role as a learner. Regarding the second descriptor, students describe the benefits and limitations of disciplinary and interdisciplinary knowledge in specific situations. In year 3, students explain those, and in year 5, they evaluate those benefits and they also evaluate different ways of knowing in specific situations. So definitely the level of awareness in year 5 needs to be considerably different. Now you might be wondering what happens year 2 and year 4. This kind of depends a little bit on each school. It's under the school's discretion. What IB would recommend is in year 2, the descriptors that the school should use should be year 3 descriptors. Obviously the expectations should be adjusted to the students' possibilities. And when it comes to year 4, teachers should be using the descriptors from year 5, or at least try. Another idea is that the schools can come up with strands that are in between the two of them. But what IB actually suggests is that we use year 3 for year 2 and the year 5 descriptors for year 5. And the last slide in this section is a visual representation of how the MYP interdisciplinary objectives, which you see them here, and the inquiry cycle that you're already familiar with are connected in order to inform planning and drive the lesson. Although objectives can be addressed separately, especially during years 1 through 3, when students need more structure or guided inquiry, eventually this process should become a holistic learning process in which students naturally flow into the following stage in their inquiry. IB requires that all students are exposed to at least one interdisciplinary unit each year in the MYP, and that all 4 objectives and all their respective strands are addressed. So please keep that in mind. And it's now break time, so I guess your coordinator will indicate how long is this break going to be, and I'll see you in a few minutes. Enjoy your coffee. Okay, let's now move on to the next section, Points of entry. This section is a little bit tricky because you will see that there's a lot of things we have to take into account. However, this is the basis of the interdisciplinary unit and it's really important. So I'm going to ask you your complete attention, okay? One of the three possible ways through which we can enter a unit is through concepts. What are concepts? A concept is a big idea, a principle or notion that is enduring, the significance of which goes beyond particular origins, subject matter, or place in time. Concepts represent the vehicle for students' inquiry into issues and ideas of personal, local, and global significance. As you are already familiar with, MYP provides a list of 16 key concepts for all subjects. Each subject area contributes with 4 different key concepts. Now, if you do the math, you will notice that we should have 36 key concepts instead of 16. But the thing is that some of those concepts are shared by different subjects. These, the fact that they are shared, are possible entering points to interdisciplinary units. At the same time, we also have multiple related concepts which could also be entry points for other interdisciplinary units. We're going to play this little game in which we're going to make those entering points more visible. So what are we going to do? I need one representative from each subject group. I have, for example, one person from physical and health education. I need a teacher of language and literature, etc. So I need in total 8 people that stand in front of everybody, forming a line and facing the rest of the group. Each of you will be given a cardboard with the name of their subject on one side and their respective key concepts on the other side. Let me show you an example. Each teacher will be given a piece of cardboard like this, in which behind there is the list of key concepts. Now, teachers, all of you just need to show your subject. You don't need to show the key concepts. The key concepts are just for the people that are holding the cardboard, okay? An administrator is going to read the name of a key concept, let's say communication. Those teachers in the line whose subject area contains this key concept should raise their cardboard, showing the whole group which subject areas share the same key concept. Now, you will all follow the same procedure until all key concepts have been read, the 16 of them. The rest of the teachers are encouraged to take notes. Now, you have 10 minutes to carry out this activity. Coordinators, you can stop the video here. Let's now look at some examples or different ways in which we can use concepts as entry points. The first way is using a single key concept approach from 2 or more disciplines. Let me show you an example. The statement of inquiry could be: global economic systems are dynamic but seek equilibrium. If one part of the system changes, the whole can be disrupted. Here the key concept would be systems, and this would be an inquiry into how economic exchange in the global market has altered specific ecosystems, such as the Amazon River Basin. Now, this subject will be this topic or this interdisciplinary unit will be approached from geography. Here, look at ecosystems, and economics. Look at economic systems. Those 2 words are underlined, so you're looking which way the key concepts are combined and approached at the same time. What would the summative assessment for this statement would look like? Students will create a campaign to raise awareness about the issue in their local community and explore alternative solutions. A second example, the statement of inquiry could be: by modeling the relationships between key variables, statistics can predict future performance. Here, relationships would be the key concept. and it would be an inquiry into patterns of world records in Olympic competition. This interdisciplinary unit would be approached from physical and health education and mathematics. A possible summative assessment would be that students will model and predict which records are likely to be broken at the Olympic Games. This example maybe reminds you of the video, The Mathematics of History, that we have seen before. Another way in which we can use concepts, different key concepts approach from two or more disciplines. So this time we're not using one, we might use two or even more. Example, statement of inquiry. Civilizations have developed different number systems to explain relationships in the world around them. Here we would be using systems and relationships as key concepts. This will be an inquiry into ancient mathematical ways of knowing, and as you probably would have seen, this inquiry would be approached from history and mathematics. A possible summative assessment task would be that students will create a presentation that proposes hypotheses about the relationship between Babylonian, Greek, Roman, and Inca history and their respective number systems. And the last one, we could be using related concepts instead of key concepts. The statement of inquiry would be: revolutionary art uses aesthetics to transform politics and society. Interesting. So here we're talking about aesthetics, which is a related concept connected to art, and revolution, which is connected to history. And this would be an inquiry into social or political injustice. Summative assessment would be that students will create a work of art that provokes responsible action in addressing a contemporary social issue. Let's now talk about how global contexts also help us enter an interdisciplinary unit. But first of all, what are global contexts? They are authentic world settings, events, and circumstances which allow our students to understand the relevance of their learning experiences. All subject areas, all of them can be connected to any of the global contexts that we have listed on the screen. So this is probably one of the easiest way to create an interdisciplinary unit, especially if it is the first time. Let's see an example of identities and relationships. As you know, these global contexts tries to answer the question, who am I, or who are we? What do students explore here? Identity, beliefs and values, personal, physical, mental, social and spiritual health, human relationships, and what it means to be a human. A potential interdisciplinary unit could be understanding ourselves, including self-control or needs and wants. And this could be approached from health and physical education and economics. Another one, orientation in space and time. It answers the question, what is the meaning of where and when? What do students explore here? Personal histories, homes and journeys, turning point in humankind, discoveries, explorations and migrations of humankind. An example of potential L&D unit could be studying different ideas and mechanisms for measuring time. This is definitely just like the example we have seen in the video. Mathematics and history. Personal and cultural expression. It answers the question, what is the nature and purpose of creative expression? What would students explore? The ways in which we discover and express ideas, feelings, nature, culture, beliefs, and values. The ways in which we reflect on, extend, and enjoy our creativity, and our appreciation of the aesthetic. So, what could we do here? Students could experiment with the role and use of language, and this could be done from language and literature, from language acquisition, and from art, for example. Because you could even include here physical and health education and also use body language. Scientific and technical innovation answers the question, how do we understand the world in which we live? Students will explore the natural world and its laws, the interaction between people and the natural world, how humans use their understanding of scientific principles, the impact of scientific and technological advances on communities and environments, the impact of environments on human activity, and how humans adapt environments to their needs. An example of interdisciplinary unit could consist on exploring the role that control over our environments has played in the lives and well-being of human populations. This unit will be approached from biology and individuals and society. Globalization and sustainability addresses the question, how is everything connected? Under this global context, students will explore the interconnectedness of human-made systems and communities, the relationship between local and global processes, how local experiences mediate the global, the opportunities and tensions provided by world connectedness, and the impact of decision-making on humankind and the environment. Students, for example, could carry out a task in which they investigate waste management and design an effective recycling campaign for the school. For this type of unit, subjects such as design, chemistry, economics, or psychology could contribute. However, if this is going to be your first interdisciplinary unit, I suggest you only involve 2 different subjects. Otherwise, it gets really complex, and you don't want to start like this yet. And finally, the last global context is fairness and development, that addresses the question, what are the consequences of our common humanity? Here, students explore rights and responsibilities, the relationship between communities, sharing finite resources with other people and with other living things, and access to equal opportunities, and peace and conflict resolution. An example of interdisciplinary unit could consist on understanding the nature of development for a specific region, which would involve geography, economics, and mathematics. And finally, our last entering point, content this time. I have provided here for you 4 examples on how the same topic could be addressed by multiple subject groups. For example, let's say that you and your colleague want to talk about conservation of indigenous traditions through performances. The Individuals and Societies teacher could explore indigenous people and globalization. In physical and health education, students could create a movement composition that reflects the traditions of an indigenous culture. And in language acquisition, students could learn how to speak and write in a specific indigenous language. Let's say that there was this big conflict at school and you want to approach that from different subjects. From language and literature, students could understand conflict and resolution in literary texts, and they can develop role plays. In art, they can explore conflict through symbolism. 2 more examples. Education for all, women's access to education, and cultural relativism. In design, students can create an application for mobile devices that organizes global data about primary education. In individuals and societies, students can research potential cultural barriers to human rights. And the last example, health and diseases, HIV prevention. In physical and health education, the teacher can approach it from trying to investigate personal responsibility and patterns of transmission. From sciences, they can understand what a viral infection is. And individuals and society can explore the ethical, economic, and social issues surrounding antiviral medications. Okay, let's now do some practice. This activity is called Start with the End in Mind and is inspired in what Rand Wiggins called backward design, and I'm sure you've probably heard about it. This activity has 2 parts. The first part is going to last between 5 to 10 minutes. Each of you will be given an ID summative assignment, an interdisciplinary summative assignment, like this. You see, I have many examples. You're going to be, each of you, one paper. Find the teachers with whom you share the same number and follow the instructions below. You will see that each of the interdisciplinary unit summative assessment task, it has a number in front of it. So find those teachers that have exactly the same number as you, and once you all gather as a group, you have to name the 2 or 3 disciplines that you believe are more naturally involved. Please write this down on your notebook. After that, I want you to think of multiple possible entering points. I want you to think of key concepts, related concepts, global context, and content that can use to connect those 2 subjects so students come up with a summative assignment like this. In part 2, which is going to be 15 minutes long, you will find the teachers with whom you share the same color this time. You're going to share your conclusions from the small group with the big group. In total, there are 12 different summative assignments, so you will be making groups of 12 people. Discuss and add ideas to what other people share, especially if it involves your discipline. And I suggest that you follow the order of the numbers. That is, the first one who speaks is the person that has the summative assignment number 1. Now your coordinator can stop the video so you can put this into practice. Have fun! Great! Let's now go through some possible answers. Number 1. Analyze a painting to understand power structures in an earlier historical period. This could be approached from visual art, the painting, and individuals and societies, the topic, the earlier historical period, and even the concept of power structures. Number 2. Choreograph and perform an aesthetic movement routine about what it means to be free. The choreograph would be done in physical and health education, while the concept of freedom could be approached from individuals and societies. 3. Compose a song, music about gender stereotypes, language and literature, for example. 4. Create a mask with a computer program to learn geometric concepts. Geometric concepts would be approached from math class, and the concept of mask and how to design it could be done from visual arts. 5. Create a work of art with recycled materials. Creating a work of art is something that is done in visual arts, and the fact that we're using recycled materials is something that could be approached from individuals and societies. 6. Design a short story for Hispanic children written in the mother tongue about first settlers. Anything connected to the Hispanic world, in this case, anything regarding the culture as well as the spoken and the written language, would be done in language acquisition, in this case Spanish. Anything connected to the settlers and even part of the history of the Hispanic world would be approached from the history class. 7. Design an advertising campaign to generate awareness about water use in the community and sustainability. Designing an advertising campaign is something that could be done in design class. The water use is something that could be done in sciences. And the concept, the idea of sustainability, use of water, is something that could be approached from individuals and societies class. 8. Explore the relationship between sound wave longitude and tube length to create a wind instrument. The wind instrument would be created in music class, and the study of the relationship between sound wave longitude and tube length would be studied in science. 9. Follow the design cycle, something done in design, to create bilingual brochure that fosters intercultural understanding in the community in language acquisition or promotes community well-being. In this case, this last piece could be done from physical and health education class. 10. Implement observational techniques, that will be arts class, to analyze living organisms, sciences, or visual texts, language and literature. 11. Understand the causes of contamination of a local body of water. This could be done from many subjects, for example, biology, chemistry, economics, or geography. And the last one, use statistical analysis, which could be done in math, to research the relationship between urbanization and poverty, maybe economics, or multiple trials in an experiment, sciences. As you have seen, you might have other options that you have discussed that might work as well. It is totally fine. These are just some ideas, but the answers that I have provided here are not exclusive. So as long as there's discussion and you find a way to connect subjects, any subject actually works. Great, it looks like it's break time again, so take some time to have a rest, chat with your friends, and I'll see you in about 10 minutes. Okay, I hope you enjoy your break. We are going to start one of the most important activities of the day. This is called speed dating. Yes, and for this activity you will need the table 1, the one that you completed at home, right? I showed you at the beginning of the workshop. The table 2 refers to this table here. At that moment, coordinators, please pass it out. It's called Speed Dating, Who Will Be My Perfect Match? And you have the list of all the subject groups that are taught in MYP. Okay? You will also need something to write with. Now, if you are a big group of people working in MYP, you might choose to split into grade groups, maybe, like all those teachers working in year 5, all those working in year 4, etc. Maybe building groups, if some of you work in middle school, some others work in high school, or you can work all of you as a whole group. You will need to find somebody who teaches a different subject in a grade level you both share. Let's say that you teach Spanish in years 4 and 5. You might find other people that teaches other subjects either in year 4 or in year 5. But whenever you talk, it has to be exactly about the same level, okay? Please keep that in mind because it is important. You will have 4 minutes, 4 and only 4, to discuss together and find possible entry points to interdisciplinary planning. So you need to talk about, look at your tables number 1 and talk about what things you have in common. Remember, they could be, you could enter units through concepts, either key or related concepts, global context, or content. So find things that you have in common, and please write this down on table 2. Now, a whistle will tell you when you should find your next partner. So the fun about this activity is that it needs to be fast. So please go straight to the point, okay? I need you to be very focused. Now, if more than one educator teaches the same subject area in the same grade, which can happen in bigger schools, please agree on who represents it, because we don't want teachers having the same conversation twice. Each of you should have a similar number of subjects assigned. For example, if me and if it's 2 people teaching language acquisition and my colleague teaches 2 and 3 and me too, he might pick Spanish 2 and I might pick Spanish 3. Does that make sense? By the end of this activity, I'm going to ask you to choose a partner that you will work with to create your first mock interdisciplinary unit with. Okay, can we do that? This activity might take some time. Just calculate approximately between 30 to 40 minutes. Are you ready? Coordinators, you can stop the video now. Great, I hope you guys had fun. We're going to start our section 4, interdisciplinary unit planning. So how does this work? This part is not especially difficult because you're already familiar with IB planners. So this is kind of similar. What do we expect interdisciplinary units to have? They need to start with a clear sense of purpose and be grounded in the relevant disciplines. So it cannot be just a random thing that you do. It needs to be really well thought, and it has to have an objective, a purpose, a reason why. Units are driven by a statement of inquiry that needs to be conceptually based, that's key and related concepts, and contextually framed. You need a global concept, just like regular units. Involve students in a range of significant, engaging, relevant, and challenging learning experiences planned in response to the inquiry questions. The inquiry questions refers to the factual, conceptual, and debatable questions that you will also come up with. You'll see. It also needs to enable students to demonstrate development of the interdisciplinary objectives. Remember that IB is always objectives oriented. So keep the 4 objectives in mind. Remember that you have to address the 4 of them in every interdisciplinary unit. It also needs to give students the opportunity to demonstrate achievement and interdisciplinary understanding through specific performances. So remember that, and actually we will talk about that in section 5, we will have to come up with the summative assessment task that allows a student to meet this point. And also, finally, interdisciplinary units are planned and taught to promote positive attitudes and the development of the learner profile and approaches to learning skills. Remember that the learner profile was the center of everything and the reason why we're doing this. Great. In order to be able to complete the planner, I want you to look at model planners. For this activity, you will need an example of interdisciplinary unit planner, and I'm going to show you where you can find them. If you go to the OCC under the Middle Years Program section, you will click on Interdisciplinary Teaching and Learning, and this is what you will find. Now, I suggest that whenever you have some time, you scroll down and you look at all documents that can be useful for you. If we look at the first link, we have the Fostering Interdisciplinary Teaching and Learning in the MYP guide, which you are supposed to have already. Here you have it in both formats, online and in PDF. And look at the second section, Fostering Interdisciplinary Teaching and Learning Support Material. And this is where you are going to go, and this is where you will find the materials. Right now, your coordinators are passing examples of materials that you will need to follow my explanation. Each example includes the unit plan, the assessment task, student work, and the final assessment with some comments. Great! You will work with your chosen partner from the activity 3, the person that I said that you can create your first mock interdisciplinary unit. Each pair will be provided with an example of interdisciplinary unit planner, which you will follow and discuss as we go through its different sections. Okay, so this is what you have. First of all, you complete the first section, your name, subject groups that are involved, a unit title, the year, and how long this is going to take, which it can depend. Some units might take the whole year, some units might take just 1 month, so this really depends. Now let's look at the inquiry section of the planner. First of all, and this is different compared to the regular planners, the subject-specific planners, it asks about the purpose of integration. So basically you need to answer 2 questions. To what extent is it necessary to draw upon other disciplines for this unit? Remember that interdisciplinary learning needs to be purposeful. There has to be a reason why. So you need to think about this area of knowledge that students wouldn't be able to access if it wasn't because they are combining knowledge from both different disciplines. And you also need to answer the second question. In what ways does integrating disciplines contribute to a deeper understanding? So you need to make this piece explicit because it's really, really important. Below, you find your key concepts, related concepts. Just think about 2, 3, no more, because otherwise there's too many focus and it gets complex. Global context, choose what's the most natural framework for the unit. You put together your statement of inquiry as well as the inquiry questions that will lead the unit. Think of some factual questions, some conceptual questions, and at least 1 debatable questions. The second part of the inquiry box, you have summative assessment, interdisciplinary performance, or performances of understanding. This is what we're going to be doing in the next section a little bit more in depth, but basically before you develop the whole unit, think about the aim, like the very end of the unit. How are students going to demonstrate that they've mastered the objectives of the interdisciplinary unit? So in the first box, interdisciplinary criteria, what interdisciplinary objectives will we achieve in this unit? Remember that IB requires us to address the 4 objectives, so you will need to write them down here. And then 1 tasks, what specific task or tasks students will carry out in order to show their understanding. And then what constitutes adequate evidence of understanding, okay? So I need you to reflect on that too. And also, just like in our regular units, what skills were students developed and put into practice? This section is always important and often underestimated, because we assume that students are able, they have some skills that they actually don't have, and we need to actively teach them. So please keep that in mind. The action section is going to be done separately by each of you. This is about disciplinary grounding, and you think about how your subject will contribute to the interdisciplinary unit. So you need to write down the subject, your subject specific objectives, the related concepts. Remember that key concepts will not go here, but they will be used for the whole interdisciplinary unit. So your related concepts, 1 or 2 maximum, what content you're gonna cover, and then the disciplinary learning engagement and teaching strategies. That's basically the different activities that you will design. And then the process. What will students do to learn? So think about specifically those activities that are going to be interdisciplinary, not the disciplinary ones, because they will be written in the previous box. Here it says interdisciplinary learning experiences and teaching strategies, specifically interdisciplinary, okay? On the right, you have formative assessment and differentiation, which is something that we also have in our regular planners. And at the very bottom, the resources, which materials you're going to be using in the class. And the very last piece, as usual, there's a reflection section. You consider the planning, the process, and the impact. And you have to do this prior to teaching the unit, during the unit, and after teaching the unit. And especially the first interdisciplinary unit that you create will be really important, because there's going to be a lot of reflection going on, a lot of experimenting. It is perfectly fine. That's why this box is here, to help you with the process. So, what are we going to do now? We are going to start planning your mock unit. For this activity, you will need a blank ID planner that your coordinators will pass in a minute. Together with your partner, I want you to discuss about this invented or not mock interdisciplinary unit, and I want you to complete just the inquiry section, only the inquiry section, which is in page 1. Only the first part. I don't want you to work on the summative assessment task yet, because we will see it in a minute. You can include more than one idea, so you don't have to write down the definite idea. And eventually, as you develop your planner, you will pick your final choice. Does that make sense? Do not overthink about it. You have just approximately 15 minutes. You can look at the examples that you were provided in order to look for some ideas. But try to be as creative as you can. And remember that there are so many ways in which you can do it that very often there's no really right and wrong. Okay? Coordinators, you can stop the video now. And we got to the last section of our workshop. Number 5, interdisciplinary unit assessment. There are 4 assessment criteria, and they are perfectly aligned with the objectives that we have already seen. Criteria A refers to disciplinary grounding. Each grade will come from the different disciplines, and teachers will have to come up with a final grade. Criterion B is about synthesizing, in which way students were able to combine knowledge from both disciplines in order to create something new. Criterion C, communicating. How do they communicate the process as well as their results? And criterion D, reflecting. This is always one of the most important pieces in IB education. Those criteria have been designed in order to assess integration of disciplines, support student learning, provide feedback, especially with formative activities that need to be carried out throughout the whole unit. They are informed by approaches to learning skills. They are focused on objectives, just like I have mentioned, and they can include task-specific clarifications, which is something we will see in the next slide. The assessment rubrics are available in your Fostering Interdisciplinary Teaching and Learning in the MYP guides. You will find them on page 57 through 62. And this is an example it's an extract of one of the rubrics that you will find in Year 1 Criterion A regarding disciplinary grounding. So if you look at Year 1, it says a different set of rubrics is provided for Years 1, 3, and 5 in order to reflect progression in interdisciplinary learning. As we have seen in the objectives, some of the descriptors remain the same, which obviously we have to adjust the expectations, but sometimes they are different. There is flexibility regarding Years 2 and 4, but remember that, as I mentioned, the expectations for Year 2, you should be using rubrics of Year 3, and the same happens with Year 4. It is recommended that you use Year 5 rubrics. When it comes to the level of achievement, the numbers concentrate on positive improvement. 1 and 2, it means limited improvement. 3 and 4, it means adequate. 5 and 6, substantial. And 7 and 8, it means excellent. Notice that there's not really a failing exam, because IB is about progress, not about penalizing students. The second box describes the level descriptor, and here we can see that assessment criteria are aligned with learning objectives. Here you have the strand that is describing the objective. And then the task-specific clarification, it is something that is highly recommended, and it really helps the student understand the exact expectations for the task. You can include it in a separate column or in a separate document. Other than the task-specific clarifications, your rubric can include the specific expectations regarding content, length, resources, etc. So what will students do in order to demonstrate purposeful, disciplined, and integrative understanding of the topic? Students are going to be exposed to two different types of assessment. On one hand, we have formative assessment, which is the set of learning experiences that help students work towards our final goal, works toward revealing the statement and revealing the statement of inquiry. And how are we going to assess or evaluate if they were able to demonstrate understanding of the statement of inquiry through a summative assessment task or a final performance of understanding? How should be done in order for students to build their knowledge in a natural way? We should start from the very end using a strategy called backward design, which was suggested by Wiggins and Mackay. So the performance task, the final performance task, you should design it in a way that allows the students to demonstrate their most comprehensive and understanding of the statement of inquiry. So think of a task that is completely oriented to the statement of inquiry. It also has to allow students to make their interdisciplinary understanding visible. It needs to be clearly aligned to learning objectives, the 4 learning objectives. It needs to require students to think and to transfer knowledge into new situations. That is, any formative task, any learning experience that you might expose students to cannot be directly connected to the final task. So it has to be a new but similar situation. And finally, it needs to be authentic. It needs to be like a real world task. Students need to believe that it could be true. It's a situation that they might see themselves involved in the future at some point. Here I have an example for you to demonstrate what I mean. An example of formative activities. In a unit on migration, students read about local migrants. They discuss their findings and they draw some possible conclusions. What we're doing here is we're talking in general terms. Now, what a possible final assessment task could look like. Students research the immigration policies of different countries and the experiences of immigrants in order to create their own policy for immigration for their country. Now, if you look at this performance task, it's a whole project that involves research, involves inquiry, involves action, and involves reflection. So we have the whole inquiry cycle just within the performance task. This is a little idea, something that you can use in order to create your interdisciplinary unit performance task. This is called GRASPs, and it really helps create an authentic and real world assignment. What you have to do is the following. You need to think of what is the goal of the task, the role of the student, the audience, situation, product, and the standards. How are the students going to be assessed? In the goal, you're going to establish the challenge. What's the problem that students need to face? The role, what is going to be exactly the role of the students? Who are they going to pretend that they are? The audience, we have to identify who their performance task will be addressed to. The situation is basically you need to set the context, a situation in which they are involved. The product, what the final outcome, we have to clarify what will students create and very importantly, why they will have to create this. And then we should create a rubric that establishes the expectations regarding success. Now, if we retake the example that we saw in the previous slide, the goal of that situation would be to persuade the government leaders in your country to implement your proposal of immigration policy. Who do we want our students to be? We're going to tell our students that they are members of the organization Blue Bond, which supports immigrants when entering your country. Who will be they talking to? They will be talking to their country government leaders. The situation is that there has recently been a humanitarian catastrophe, and their country's current immigration policy is excessively restrictive, even in such extreme circumstances. What will they have to create after doing some research on other countries' immigration policies and interviewing some immigrants willing to share their experience with them, so first-hand information? They will come up with a proposal of new immigration policy that they believe is more fair and humane. And as we know, they will be assessed with the criteria A, B, C, and D. So the only thing left we still need to do is to complete our blank planners a little bit more. Remember that we completed the first part of the inquiry section in the planner. What we're going to do is complete the second part of the inquiry section, the one referred to the assessment task. So it says, together with your partner, think about a possible summative assessment task using GRASPs, which meets the requirements described in this section and which addresses the statement of inquiry of your unit. You will also create a rubric for each criterion, which includes a task-specific column. Remember that I already mentioned in which page you can find those rubrics. So basically what you need to do is add the task-specific column, or if you prefer, on a separate table or rubric. And finally, complete the rest of the inquiry section in your planners. These might take you approximately 30 minutes because we're getting into more complex issues, aspects of the planner, but you will see that after that, the rest is way easier. So it looks like we have reached the end of our workshop. I would like to go through everything that we have learned, and this is what we have seen, we have learned, and we have done. First of all, we have clarified concepts. We have distinguished between what an inter, multi, and transdisciplinary units are, and we know exactly what we need to do and how it is different from other types of units. We also know that it is very important to work towards objectives. We know where we can find them, and we know that we have to address the different strands within each criterion. We have also identified multiple points of entry, and we have seen many examples. We are also able to plan an interdisciplinary unit, and we can also design an authentic interdisciplinary unit assessment task using the GRASPS strategy. But other than that, we've also created a table with possible entry points with multiple subject groups. We've also started a mock interdisciplinary unit planner, and we have also created a mock interdisciplinary unit assessment task. That was definitely a lot of work. So congratulations if you made it through the whole workshop without having a stroke or anything. I know it can be a challenging process at the beginning, but you will see that it's very rewarding, not only for you, but especially for the students. And you will see that in the results. So thank you very much for listening to me. Please contact me if you have specific questions. This is my email address. Don't hesitate to contact me. I'll be happy to help. And as I said before, thank you very much and good luck.